And we're live. All right. Good afternoon, Matt. How are you doing?
Hey, doing good, Dan. How about you?
Oh, pretty good. How was your weekend?
You know what? It was a pretty good weekend, but you know what I'm really jealous of?
What's that?
Your sunshine behind you. If I had a
Yes,
window outside,
yes,
I would show
yes.
you darkness, winter darkness.
Is it already pitch black where you're at?
Oh yeah, 4 o'clock it is pitch black. So yeah, for our listeners, we are recording at 5 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, which is 4 o'clock your time. So yeah, I guess you do have an extra hour of sunlight. What time does the sun go down there?
Probably around 5 as well. But now you can see this amazing purple wall I moved in with. Um, I will paint it eventually. You'll have to keep me accountable.
I love it.
Yes, yes. So this week's kind of exciting because it's CES in Vegas, and a ton of new technology is coming out. Have you been following it much?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's always fun to see what comes out in at CES in Vegas. And what's interesting is today is day one. So, but a lot of the announcements happened yesterday. So lots of big shows, Samsung, LG, Hisense, and so a lot of the big companies do sort of pre-shows of what they're going to talk about, and they get up on the stage and do their keynotes, and then today is the actual day when you can walk around and check out booths and talk to people, and yeah, it's huge.
Cool, cool. Did anything stick out to you that you really liked from
Oh
the
boy.
shows?
Lots and lots and lots. I think the coolest tech, in my opinion, that I've seen so far is LG's TV R, which is that rollable OLED
Yeah.
TV. So, I mean, we all knew it was coming. We've seen the technology for, I think, 5 years was when the first prototype first showed up of a foldable, rollable OLED screen. And now, of course, we've already covered Samsung's phone that's going to be folding and the prototype they showed. But this is a full 65-inch television. And then
Sweet.
it's got this gorgeous speaker system on the bottom. So the bottom, I was thinking when I first saw it, I was like, oh, is that the guts of the TV? It's kind of bulky, but no, it's like a
Speaker.
high-end speaker. And then the TV just rolls up. And then when you don't need it, it rolls away. So
Weird.
yeah.
Well, I like that, but I also worry a little bit that it might get stuck.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's a mechanical component that rolls and unrolls. It would be just like your blinds that if you have automatic blinds, they can get stuck too. But I think that most people could figure out how to fix a rollable mechanical system. It's not like your TV's breaking, right?
Right. But
But it's like,
is
I
there
can't get my TV. It's just 2 inches of TV. No.
ah, ah, ah. So is there a slot on the top of the box and could
Yeah.
people put pennies and stuff in it? I don't know.
Oh,
It just
sure. I mean, just
yeah,
imagine toddlers
paper
sticking
clips.
things in there.
Yeah,
And I
spit.
remember when you were a little kid and you took like, was it French toast and you put it into the VCR?
I'm still thinking about French toast right now, and I might just put it in that LG slot.
Like this one.
I just feel like if you're gonna have an open slot like that, it needs to be high up where no one's gonna get in it, you know? Maybe your cat's
Well,
gonna claw in it, maybe.
it's actually the top of the TV. So imagine like a paper thin, well, it's probably a couple millimeters thick. That's all the slot is, but the whole slot is filled up by the top of the TV. And
Oh,
then
okay.
when it comes up, like you might be able to get a piece of paper in the hole. So don't eat over it. You're gonna get crumbs in there.
Crumbs in the hole.
Get crackers.
I'm selling this on eBay. We haven't put any crumbs inside the box.
Yeah. No crumbs in this TV.
Well, tell me more about it. So it's 65 inches. Is it 4K? Is it like you said the
Yeah.
sound was pretty good. Does it
Yeah,
have
it's a
anything?
4K. I didn't write down what the speakers were. It's not a Harman Kardon, but it could be. Pretty sure it's not, but it's high end speakers. But what's really neat about it is the fact that it's paper thin, it's foldable, it's OLED, it's probably 4K. There are a lot of 8K televisions that are showing up,
Mhm.
but the standard, like there's no content for 8K yet, right? I mean,
Right.
barely getting into 4K on Netflix, and I don't even know if Prime or Hulu does it. I bet you they do. But still, we're just barely getting into that content. And do we really need 8K? I know people said that when we got 4K. Do we really need 4K? And I think the answer is yes, especially when you have these monster televisions.
75-inch screen.
Yeah.
The problem is your cable company's going to cap it. You guys have huge caps in Canada, right? Like, oh, you hit your 80 gigabytes this month, you're done.
You know, I used to, but it's completely changed. So I remember I got into a big fight with my internet service provider, and because when they sold it to me, it was one of those door-to-door ding dong, hey, we've got this amazing.
What? You fell for it?
Well, you know, I actually pulled out my bill that I had with a competitor.
Nice.
And I wrote it all down. And it was also another cold winter day. This lady came to my door, it's minus 30.
She knocked on your door?
Yeah, she knocked on my door, minus 30. And, you know, I had a little bit of pity on her, but I do not go for pressure tactics when it comes to sales. In fact, I am anti-pressure. Even if it's the best product in the world, if you pressure me, forget you. Get out of my face. Yeah. Okay. But anyways, I was letting her warm up, and I had my other bill out, and it was a great deal. And she told me unlimited.
Okay.
And then on my very first bill, no, it was my second bill. I don't know what my kids were doing, but it was like way over the limit.
Oh, no.
I think Brent was downloading games on Steam and all that stuff. So anyways, way over the limit, and I called and got mad. And I haven't seen a limit cap on a higher end plan. So like if you get a little tiny like 5 megabits a second service, yeah, they're gonna have a limit cap. But if you're at the 150 plus, then no, you're not gonna have.
Man, though, if you're downloading 8K TV, I mean that's just gonna be honking. It's gonna be terabytes you're pulling down.
Data's crazy. Think about the servers to support it, right? Like I'm sure it was super expensive for Netflix to get into 4K because they've got to have the bandwidth to push that 4K out. And
I've heard rumors too that they actually use Amazon, their networks to push that all through.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
So what else did you discover at CES that you thought was pretty cool?
Okay, so I don't know. I want your opinion if you think this is gimmicky or not. Hisense is actually one of the biggest electronics manufacturers in China, and they are releasing televisions that they claim have artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So do you need an AI TV? What do you think? Does it have to be smart?
Like we know you want to be watching The Simpsons right now.
Yeah, you obviously are not enjoying this rom-com. So anyways, what it does is if you're watching sports, it will tell. So it can't tell what the content is, but somehow maybe it's through the noise. They can tell it's a commentator, but it will sharpen the image. It will speed up the refresh rate. And so all of a sudden you're getting smooth sports. If you're watching a movie, it can tell and it will adjust the sound quality coming out to be a surround sound, and it will just give you more of a cinematic experience. And so that's what they were claiming. And some of the people who were testing it said, it's a cool idea. I don't know how many people sit on their couches and go through, I'm watching a movie, I'm going to go to cinema mode.
Never.
Now games. Yeah. So apparently this thing will automatically do it for you. So will people notice? I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
Well, first of all, I think it feels kind of cheesy. Do you remember those old CBC like sitcoms that were in the 80s and in the 90s that had that weird refresh rate where you'd watch it and it just seemed really British or really Canadian? And
you could just tell it was cheap. It was just
something like someone pulled out their camcorder and they were walking around. That's what
it was
4K.
Like PBS, super slow.
PBS. That's what 4K feels like to me when people have like these like smooth frame rates when people are walking around. I'm like, that's not TV. It's like someone pulled out their video camera. It's really weird, you know. Anyway, to answer your question, would I want my TV to switch back and forth with refresh rates and sound? Probably not. I'm more of a hands-on kind of a person. So I would say,
Okay, so I got another one for you. Since we already talked about LG's rolling TV, let's talk about their home brew machine.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Is this the bread maker? I was scrolling through some and there was this giant bread maker at CES that everyone was
well,
freaking
it's
out about.
liquid bread. It makes
Oh,
beer.
you know what? I think everyone's starving at this conference and everyone's looking for the food booths, is what I think.
Well, this
Yeah.
is the beer booth. So it's called Homebrew. Literally, it's called LG Homebrew. And it looks like a Keurig machine, but
Okay.
instead of kicking out coffee when you put a little container in it, you put in 3 containers. So you'll put in your yeast, you'll put in your hops oil, you'll put in, actually, I think 4 containers. What else do I? Oh, your malt and then some flavoring. So if
Oh.
you want to get into the craft beer side of
Oh
things, you can put
yeah. Didn't do it.
flavors and and then so with a Keurig, you take this little container and you put it in and you push the button and you got some coffee or
Yeah.
hot chocolate instantly. Well, this one, you take the little containers, you put them in and you push the button, and instantly in 2 weeks you've got beer. So
2 weeks.
yeah.
Well, it
But
beats the bathtub.
yeah, it beats the bathtub. So I don't know. I got some buddies that are into craft beers, and
Instantly 2 weeks later.
and they brew their own beers, and I think it takes longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
if you're going to be crafting, and I'd like to ask our listeners this, who may be more into this than say you and I are,
Right. I mean, I
we're
don't like to drink
useless on these
calories.
topics.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a craft. Like it's how you handle your malt and your hops, and like it's how you deal with it that makes the craft beer neat, and when they share it with their friends, they're like, it's all about the nuances. So I'm not sure if homebrew's really gonna make a big hit. And if you think about it, I don't know if it's cheaper than just going and buying it
Oh.
at the store. So I don't know. So I guess we'll leave it up to economics to tell us if people go out and buy the home brew, or if craft brewery, like people who do this stuff at home, if they really are excited about it. I'd like to know.
Well, craft beer is so hot right now. I have people asking me about it all the time. I can tell you one time I was down in Ensenada at,
Yeah.
and I was just sitting down and I asked for a root beer and they brought over a craft beer. And I took one sip, Matt, and I
Yeah.
spit it right out. It tasted like, how can I describe it to you? It was like black. It was like a black liquid.
Like molasses?
It was like taking a bite out of molasses, but not sweet. It was
Was it
like
like taking a bite out of like a good rye bread?
it's like a rye bread.
Did somebody brew this in their basement?
Was this in a bathtub in Ensenada?
Yeah.
One thing I can tell you too is I'm not a big fan of even the soda machines. Like I have friends that love Diet
Oh
Coke and
yeah,
they
yeah,
love
those
Coca-Cola.
soda. Yeah.
And they, there's all the rage like, what's your favorite thing of 2018? Oh, me and my wife, we got a soda machine and they'll, put
That's pretty
juices and then
healthy.
then they'll just, put the carbonation in and they
Yeah.
love it. They love it.
Wow. Wow.
So
So maybe
even
this homebrew's got somewhere to go, like
I,
it's
all
two
right,
weeks of
2
letting it
weeks.
ferment on your counter, just something else taking up space in your kitchen. But okay, it looked cool. So here's some other neat things
Okay,
that came
yeah,
out of CES. So Harley-Davidson is going to be announcing their very first all-electric motorbike. It's
I
called the
saw it.
LiveWire.
It's pretty cool. Here's the problem
Yeah.
with it though.
What's that?
I don't know what you think about it, and our listeners maybe will disagree with this. I'm gonna get some hate mail over it, but I think it kind of looks like a Ninja. It looks like a bullet
Oh,
bike. When you look at
yeah.
it, I mean, it's cool. It looks future. It's something that I would want to ride,
Yeah.
as like a
But it
millennial. And
doesn't look like a Harley Davidson,
no,
right?
no, it
Because
doesn't
Harley
have
Davidson's
the
got that iconic
chrome, the
look. Yeah.
leather.
The
Yeah,
the muscle. Yeah. What they
bulky.
took from Eagle back in the day. So yeah, I
This
totally
is
yeah.
like sleek bullet bike. It looks like, and it goes fast. And
Yeah.
I was reading all about it, and it has kind of this. The one that I saw had like a neon orange paint
Yeah.
job, which I'm sure you could get chrome if you asked for it. I mean, it's cool, but isn't it like $30,000?
Well, hey, I don't know. You tell me. So here's another thing that's
Yeah,
iconic with Harley Davidsons is the big rumble, right? And
right.
my friends who ride motorbikes, that
They're
they
all
want
deaf.
well, they want the rumble
Yeah.
because cars don't see them.
That's
And
true.
and so like does this car or does this motorbike emit a sound so that cars can hear it? And does it have the iconic Harley-Davidson like what does it do? I don't know. Did you hear anything about that?
I didn't hear about the sound. I did see that the price was $31,000. I
Yeah.
mean, for an extra 4K, you could get a Tesla Model 3.
That's very true.
And
Very
then
a whole car.
that's a whole car. It's gonna go, 200-300 miles. I forgot how many miles this one can go. Did you see
I
the
didn't
Harley
know. I can
Davidson?
imagine it goes quite a distance because it's really just a bike and you, so it's probably a lot more efficient. But when you look at the price, you're right. I mean, and you can't ride it in the winter.
You
So
can in California.
yeah, and most of the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so here's some other things.
You've got
So
2 weeks to ride it in Canada, Matt. August 1st.
and if it rains, you're out of luck.
Yep.
So P&G is another company. So you may be like, who's P&G? Well, they're the people who make Pampers and Tide, and they had a whole slew of devices. Some of them kind of crazier than others. So they've got heated razors. Yeah, okay, it'd be nice to have a hot razor when you're shaving your face. Toothbrushes with AI. Oh, like maybe it will talk
Oh.
to you and be like, you're missing that back underneath. Like, I don't know. So, do I really want my toothbrush talking back? I don't know. And then here's the most interesting one. They've got a wand that scans your skin. So it scans your skin and it looks for age spots. And then it uses,
Oh.
this is the quote I saw, it uses a serum that's
Okay.
supposed to treat your age spots. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It's not the AI in the wand that finds the age spots. It's this magic serum. What is this magic
What is
serum
this
that
serum?
they've got? That's what's interesting.
Do you think
If this
somebody brewed it for 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's right. They've just got a little canister. Anyways, so here's another one. So they've got a Head and Shoulders device. So Head and Shoulders, the dandruff shampoo. They've
Uh-huh.
got this device that uses ultraviolet light that scans your scalp. So it's like, and then it's like, you have dandruff. And then it will recommend things like you should use this product.
That's
I don't know. I'm talking
ridiculous.
like a robot, but I don't think it talks like a robot. It might just text your phone. You have dandruff. I don't know.
Crap, I got a text again from my shampoo bottle.
Oh man, it's telling me I need to get some more Head and Shoulders. So other neat things, John Deere. John
Okay.
Deere's there, and they have self-driving tractors.
Oh, that would
And
be nice. Except for when your dog runs in front of it and it doesn't know what to
oh
do and it eats
man,
it up.
my grandpa-in-law has killed more dogs with a tractor. Like we shouldn't. This is not good for the podcast. People love, and he's the most gentle, kind man. And I think that's the problem. His dogs love him, and when he's just riding by in his tractor cutting hay, they just come up and they're like, "Keith, Keith," and then they get run over. It's bad.
Oh,
Sharon
no.
had so many dogs as a child growing up,
Because of that.
and every single one of them. What happened to that one, Grandpa? What happened to that one, Grandpa? What happened? Very sad, very sad. Okay,
Oh.
so they also have an 18-ton, so John Deere again, an 18-ton combine that uses AI. So first of all, it drives itself, and then it uses AI to automatically look at the quality of the grain that's coming in through the hopper, and then it will adjust some settings so that it can actually harvest faster. So that's kind of cool. I think right now there's a lot of manual work, even when you're in a combine trying to adjust and make sure that you can separate the wheat faster. And now this will automatically do it. And the best part is the farmer with a phone on their app can be sitting in the farmhouse, letting that
Technology on my farm.
well, hey, maybe this is the future of farming. I don't know. So, yeah. Okay, here's another weird one.
Okay.
What do you think about this one? So, Byton is an electric car manufacturer from China, and they have a steering wheel with an LED screen embedded in the steering wheel.
Don't look down at the wheel. Don't look down, up,
Don't
down.
look, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're saying this is a better place than an instrument dash, which is usually behind the steering wheel and
No.
looking through the steering wheel to the instrument dash. So now what they're doing is, I think the steering wheel is the instrument dash, and they say it's safer than looking through it. And when you turn the wheel, get this is the amazing part, it stays level. It doesn't turn with the wheel.
Whoa. I think that would be distracting. Have you ever
Yeah,
used cruise control before and you have to like freaking find those buttons on the
I
steering
know.
wheel and you're trying to drive and you look down, you're like, okay, where's the set button? Do I hit the up button, the plus, the minus? You're like, crap. It's just not a good place for things.
Yeah, and I'm also not sure because people come in all different shapes and sizes. So if you're shorter, it's going to be closer to your field of view. But if you're taller, I don't know.
Well, what
Um,
about at night? It's going to be shooting that light right up into your face.
I'm
What if you're
assuming
wearing
it would
glasses?
adjust, but still, yeah. What if there's lots of questions? So I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. So here's another thing. TVs are now announcing. So we have Samsung, LG, Vizio, and Sony all announced today that they'll be supporting AirPlay 2.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about this for a little bit because that's huge.
Do it.
Yeah, so Apple has always been a really closed ecosystem.
Yeah.
If you ever got, iTunes Music back in the early 2000s, you could literally only play it on your iPod and then your iPhone, and you couldn't play it on third-party devices. You couldn't play it on a Zune. It took forever even to get to Windows for iTunes to be on there that you could play it. It had
Yeah.
restrictions that you could only play it on up to 5 devices. And Matt, did you know
Wicked.
that I still have about 600 songs that I can only play on 5 devices because it still has the DRM on it from the
Yes.
early 2000s.
I
And I thought
remember
for
that.
sure
Yeah.
I paid $1.39 for these songs. I'm sure that as time goes on and that as streaming becomes more popular, I'll be able to just play it wherever. But no, it's still restricted. And
Hmm.
so that's how restricted their ecosystem is. Now, back 20 years ago, they had to get a lot of different permissions from Sony, from all the different music companies to let them play, and
Hmm.
so that was their excuse back then. But Apple is a closed ecosystem.
They really are.
Even their OS 10, I mean, they don't let you do a lot of stuff on your Mac machine on a Windows machine. For example, programming video games or programming any kind of program for an iPhone, you have to have a Mac machine. And
Hmm.
that's kind of their bread and butter. They make you buy their hardware in order to release anything for it. They make you buy their hardware to listen to the music on it. And so the fact that now they're finally saying, you know what, you don't need our hardware anymore, watch our programs wherever you want, is insane. Um,
So So what's the implications of this? Do you think it's going to help Apple? They've been so enclosed, but a lot of people still have iPhones, especially in North America. Lots of people have iPhones. I'd say it's probably 50% of the phones that I see out there are iPhones. Now, granted, that's dropping significantly from what it used to be, but do you think it's going to help Apple and improve their popularity that now you can just use your iPhone and cast directly to a television without needing an Apple TV?
Well, I like the fact that AirPlay is coming, and that's what you had mentioned, AirPlay 2.
Yeah.
But did you know they're also releasing the iTunes Store with
Oh.
movies and TV shows on the Samsung devices? And there's rumors that it will be with LG as well.
Well, I
Now,
didn't know that, and I think that's wise. I mean, look at Apple TV or Google TV. Google TV's been like 2 years now, maybe even 3 years on TVs without needing a box. Roku, right? Apple was the first to the market with this. Apple TV, when it first came out, everybody was amazed with it. And they're like, oh, this is so cool. But yet it was Roku, it was Android that started partnering with the manufacturers of televisions. And they're the ones that everybody's using now. So is Apple too late?
well, I think what's going to happen is Apple's going to release a Netflix competitor,
Hmm.
probably this year, because I know they've already signed on some huge people. Like I think, Rachel from Friends, I forget what her real name is, and that
Jennifer
guy,
Aniston,
and that guy that does the singing in Cars with Stars, I forget his name. He's here in LA.
Jerry Seinfeld.
No, no, not the comedians in Cars with Coffee, but it's he
Oh,
sings he
yeah.
sings with them. They go around. Anyway, they've signed a ton of people to make these shows just for the Apple whatever the streaming thing that
Yeah,
they're going to
whatever it
come
will
out with.
be. It's kind of like Netflix is making their own content and Amazon is making theirs and Apple is making theirs. So it's no secret. And we also have Disney has already said they're pulling all of their content from Netflix. And I think that's what kind of sparked all this independent content because Netflix saw this coming, that they're going to lose all this great content. And I guarantee you Disney's made money off of it,
Oh yeah, huge
right?
money. Well, and here's the other crazy thing about here in Los Angeles is Apple has just purchased a huge stage and movie production warehouse in Culver City, which is expensive. So they're planning on making their own original content over there, is what I'm guessing. And
Mm,
so they're probably going to have this Netflix competitor, and they don't want it just to be for people with an Apple TV. Because like you said, if you look around, most people have a Roku or they have, the NVIDIA Shield like you do, or other things, or a Samsung TV, right? They have a
yeah,
Samsung
yeah.
TV
These
or an
TVs are
LG
coming
TV.
smart, right? And
Yep,
and a lot of them actually have Android built right into them.
yep.
And so you've got Chromecast capabilities. I mean, that's been for years you could buy a television with Chromecast built right in.
So
So,
I don't think it's the Airplay II that's really exciting. I mean, it's cool. I have an iPhone. I'd like to pull up a PowerPoint presentation or some
yeah,
photos from my recent trip and show everyone. That would be nice, because I don't have an Apple TV. But
yeah.
I think the real seller here is that they're going to put their streaming on it, the
And
iTunes
their app
store.
store, like that's crazy. That's crazy
But it's
because
it's mostly just movies and TV shows
okay,
and
so you're not
music.
going to
It's
be playing games and apps and things like that.
no, not that I can
Unlike
tell.
what you can do, like my Shield TV, I can put games on it, no
I
problem.
wonder.
Yeah,
Let's investigate this more because it just said iTunes.
yeah,
And iTunes technically could be part of the App Store, but I kind of got the
yeah,
feeling it was just movies and TV shows. So I think this is going to be huge. And personally, I hope that they break open their operating system a little bit more. Let us install it on things that aren't MacBooks. Wouldn't that be
yeah,
great to get a
yeah,
Lenovo and put OS 10 on it and just open up
yeah.
their whole ecosystem? So this is a start.
And you really got me thinking here, Dan, because Apple had a monopoly. iTunes was way ahead of its time when it first came out. And everybody was on it, right? You just told us you bought these songs for how much? $1.35 that you can only
Yeah,
play on 5 objects, right? Like
yeah.
5 devices. And I did too. And I had iTunes and now I don't because I've left the Apple ecosystem. And I have no desire to go back because that's the only place I could use it is on my Apple ecosystem. Now I've got an iMac at home and yeah, I can put iTunes on it, but it also works just fine with everything else that I'm currently using. So yeah, I think Apple's really missed the boat being so protectionist. Um, I think they could have kept a lot of the market share that they've lost, but at the same time, they've kept a premium dollar value for their exclusivity.
Yeah, well, and I hope too that they release this for Roku and not just for the Samsung TV. One huge downside to TV software is that it does not get updated as often as like a Roku
Oh
would.
yeah. Yeah,
So you're kind of
exactly.
stuck with whatever the box gave
Yeah.
you. Okay, moving on here, I wanted to talk to you about Huawei because we've gotten
Let's do
a
it.
ton of listeners that talk
Yeah.
to us about it, and I think it's fascinating. Just fresh today. So Huawei has expected ties to front companies in Iran and Syria. This is what the new documents reveal. Now, in our previous podcast, Matt, you had mentioned this, but we didn't really have any proof about it. Now they're starting the court case against their executive, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about it. The U.S. case against Chief Financial Officer of China's Huawei Technologies, who was arrested in Canada last month, centers on the company's suspected ties to two obscure companies. One is a telecom equipment seller that operates in Tehran, so that's in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
The
That's the
other is
capital of Iran. Yeah.
that's right. The other is the firm's owner, a holding company registered in Mauritius. U.S. authorities allege that the CFO, Meng Wanzhou, deceived international banks into clearing transactions with Iran by claiming that the two companies were independent of Huawei, when in fact Huawei controlled them the whole time. So Huawei's maintained that the two are independent. One's an equipment seller, and but the corporate filings say that it's actually the same. So this is kind of what they're busting her on. I remember when we were talking about it earlier, I thought, this isn't really fair. Here is this awesome Chinese company that's getting popular, and here we are saying you should buy Apple and American companies, and it kind of seemed suspicious to me when they arrested her. But
Right.
when you look at the books, it seems like it's pointing to them using companies in Syria and Iran, which were both not sanctioned at the time.
So, first of all, these allegations have to be proven in court.
Right,
and I
it's
think
not proven yet. Yeah.
And that's the most important thing, that when it comes to the judicial system, there's got to be a fair trial and it's got to be proven in court. So you can say these things transpired and that they are connected. I think we've got to give Huawei a chance to put forward their story. However, the court documents are quite damning. I had previously talked about the connections to Iran, but we had no idea about the connections to where was
Syria.
the other one? To Syria
and Mauritius.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's insane, right?
From what I read, and if this is proven in court, it is quite damning, is that although Huawei is claiming that these two companies, Skycom and what was the other one, Canicula Holdings Ltd, Huawei's claiming that they are not part of Huawei. However, it's Huawei executives that had signing authorities on both those companies. And Meng Wanzhou actually sat on the board. She might have even been the president of the board for Skycom. And we knew that when she got arrested at the beginning, but we did not know about Canicula and its ties.
Well, here's the result of it. The result is that U.S. authorities say that banks cleared hundreds of millions of dollars of transactions that potentially violated economic sanctions that Washington had in place at the time. And so this was kind of a backdoor for them to get around all of these sanctions that were there.
Yeah. And secure really funding. And it was a way for them to move money out. And so if they were moving money out of Iran or Syria, they did it through these shell companies, if that's what they turn out to have been, and then move that into Huawei Holdings. So that's another thing that needs to be proven. You got to follow the money. Yes, you can say, look, all the actors, all the people, they're all the same. This person who had signing authority is a Huawei executive. This person who was sitting on the board was a Huawei executive. But you also need to follow the money. So you're allowed to do side hustles, right? We've talked about that before. And if one of your side hustles is a company in Iran, who cares?
Yeah. So didn't you know I have a side hustle over there in Tehran?
But if it can be proven that your side hustle is actually a shell for your main company, now that company is in trouble, because now your company that you actually work for is involved, and I think that's what's going to be coming out in the court documents. So
it sounds like this takes a lot of clever accounting, right? And it sounds like it's a little bit like money laundering in a way, but in an international way. It's really interesting to me to read about this and to learn more about this. It's so complicated, but hopefully, just talking this through is helping everyone understand it a little bit more.
Absolutely. So let's see what happens. And I guess here's just another side thing. And so let's get a little political, and I'm sure we're going to get some angry comments on this. But there's been political issues with Canada and China. So there have been 2 high-profile Canadians that have been arrested in Canada since then. It was almost the very next day.
Canadians in China, right?
Yeah, sorry, Canadians arrested in China. One a former diplomat, another one is a high-profile individual that brings tourist groups through, and they were both arrested, and very nebulous charges. So what was it? It's not treason, it was security risks. Is what they charged them with. Now, most countries have these laws that say I can arrest somebody if I feel like they're a terrorist or they're a security threat. And I mean, we could even get into what President Trump is trying to do tonight when he gets on and says that there's a state of emergency and he might try to build his wall and fund it that way.
Oh my
So
gosh,
let's
yeah.
just avoid that comment because this isn't a political podcast.
Or maybe
But
it is. Yeah.
maybe it is now.
Maybe it is. Don't build
But
the wall.
what we've
Yeah.
got going on here is there is some political stuff going on, and there are innocent people that are being caught up in it. And there was a Canadian delegation in China just yesterday trying to get some movement on freeing these individuals. And basically, from what I was able to understand, and this is where some of our readers may disagree, but it sure sounds like China says this is a political issue. Whereas Canada is saying, no, this is not a political issue. This isn't the West versus China. This isn't Canada and its best friend, the United States, teaming up on China. This is a legal issue where there is a legal concern and an arrest or a warrant that was put out, and all we're doing is fulfilling our legal obligations. This is not a way for us to support the U.S. in strong arming China in the trade war that's going on. So Canada's point, this is not political, this is legal. China's saying, no, this is purely political, and we've got your people too. So
Interesting.
that's kind of where it's at.
Well, it's so weird because these two countries are normally so chill. Also, the saddest part about all these sanctions, and the thing I'm the most happy about, is that I still get to eat the delicious food from all of the countries. For example,
Oh, the delicious Chinese food that was never invented in China.
like what's that beef one called in Alberta that you guys eat?
Oh yeah, we got ginger
Ginger
beef.
beef. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
so
Canadian
delicious.
treat.
Kung Pao chicken was never made in China.
Right.
Like,
I think that, and then, well, I'll tell you one thing though, Iranian
yeah.
food is really good. We have a place called Taste of Tehran in West LA.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Anthony Bourdain? He died. He was
Yeah,
on CNN.
absolutely. Yeah.
That was one of his favorite restaurants in Los Angeles. And
Ah,
I'll
he
tell
liked
you
wine.
what,
Yeah.
if the food tastes anything like that in Iran,
Yeah.
I'm there. I don't care what kind of sanctions are there. I'm there.
Oh, I got to tell you, when I was a kid, do you remember my buddy Shaheen growing
Yes.
up? So he was born in Iran.
Oh,
And
okay.
his mother's actually British and his father was Iranian. And anyways, the food that they would make, I would always eat over there because they made these awesome kebabs that were just to die for.
Ooh,
It
that
was
sounds.
awesome.
Why
Yeah.
can't I do stuff like that? Well,
Yeah.
the next thing I want to talk about is Kodi.
All
So
right.
we got quite a bit of attention with our last Kodi video, and so I think people are interested in this topic.
Hmm.
So just as kind of a rundown, Matt, Kodi, it's like a multimedia player, right, for Android devices.
Absolutely. Yeah. So on its surface, it is a media player. And that's how it was originally developed. I believe it was called XBMC originally, and people would put it on
Really?
the
Oh, it was
Xbox.
XBMC? Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it was XBMC, and it was originally lots of people on Xbox installed it, and so that's its roots. And then people started using it just like you can use any tool for good or evil. And so that's when you get the Kodi add-ons. Now, the concept of an add-on wasn't necessarily originally invented for XBMC or Kodi to download torrents and share copyrighted material. However, that's what it's evolved into. So the people at Kodi never claimed to be supporting or sustaining piracy. However, it is kind of become synonymous with piracy because people will install these add-ons. In fact, the easiest way to get Kodi working on your computer and have access to all kinds of content is to install these wizards that will automatically update your add-ons, and as certain add-ons drop off, you just update your
But probably
your
full of
whole.
malware, right?
Well, you need to be careful, absolutely. Just like anything, whenever you're playing around with freeware, especially with something that could be somewhat shady, like dealing in piracy, you have to be careful. Like if you remember LimeWire and what was the
Yeah.
donkey one, and
I don't even know.
and I remember when we first started installing those things on our
Was it
computers.
Kazaa? Kazaa? Was that the
eh,
donkey one? Yeah.
that there was anyways, they all were installing malware and all kinds of stuff, and you got the tornadoes would come up and so
That's a
I
funny word.
I think you need to be careful with what you install. But anyways, I'm going to make a confession. I've used Kodi, and I think it's a fantastic program. It's a great media player. So if you want to use it as a media player, it's great. And it's fantastic. So when I first used XBMC, it was from my laptop, and I was taking my laptop and I was plugging it into my television. And
Okay.
so it was perfect for that. And with the add-ons, it just makes it so much easier because it's such an easy system to use and figure out, and use just a regular remote control for up, down, left, right. You don't need an air mouse. It's really quite intuitive. And then you start putting these add-ons, it just made it so much easier to pirate. And then when Hollywood and the government started cracking down on people downloading torrents, that's when streaming really became big, and XBMC and Kodi became big, because you're no longer downloading a torrent and sharing it with thousands of people, which would get you in big trouble with the government of whatever nation you were living in. Instead, you're just streaming, you're just downloading it. So now it takes it from breaking the law to a misdemeanor, depending on where you live, and you go from tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines to maybe a couple $100, and nobody's really going to care about it. So that's why it became popular. And it was almost as easy to use as Netflix if all your links were working.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So here's kind of the controversial thing about Kodi. So it appears to be blocked on Sony's recent Android TVs. So there's several reports that indicate that at least some of Sony's recent Android TVs are actively blocking Kodi, the open source cross-platform streaming media player. And so Android Police is where I got this from. They said the official Kodi project on Twitter pointed out that Sony's deficiencies were happening just even a few days ago. But several people said on forums that it's been happening for about a year now. So a lot of people think that the cause is Sony itself. And of course, they release a lot of movies and entertainment. And so they're wanting to protect.
They're full of DRM.
That's
if you
true.
remember the big scandals maybe 7-8 years ago when they started putting DRM on their programs, and you couldn't get things that would work on your PlayStation unless it had the DRM. Like, you could not take a Blu-ray disc, put it in your PlayStation 2 or 3, I can't remember which one was the first with Blu-ray, and have it play unless it had that DRM built into the disc. So if you had a pirated disc, it would shut it right down. And not even with the disc, if you downloaded the torrent and the torrent had a name in it that was part of Sony Entertainment and it didn't have the DRM, it wouldn't even play the torrent.
Wow. Okay, so they're a company that is notorious for this.
Very much
Anyway,
so.
it sounds like they're cracking down on it. So, you know, what's nice is you have the NVIDIA Shield. That's not Sony. But, you know, if Sony picks up on this, maybe other people will too. So we'll see how long Kodi even lasts.
Well, that's a good point. I guess it comes down to, are you blaming Kodi, the tool, or are you blaming the people that are installing the add-ons that connect you to pirated material? So I think Sony's dead wrong in this. I think that you shouldn't go against a third-party app that could or could not be used for piracy. There's got to be better ways. So I'm sure there are people out there that use Kodi properly without breaking the law. It is a great media streamer. So I bet you most are.
Are you streaming your guitar sessions that you've been playing? And
yeah, so I can show my sweet licks to everybody on YouTube. But
we all know what's really going on. Last thing I wanted to talk about today, it looks like AT&T's Android phones are now lying about having 5G. Yes. So 2019 is really exciting. This is kind of the year where our 5G phones are going to come out. And when the mobile conferences happen in a few months, I think we're going to see a lot of things. Probably Huawei, probably Samsung. People are going to come out with real phones.
OnePlus.
The
I think
OnePlus,
OnePlus is trying to claim they'll be the first. So if
I
we
don't,
see something in February,
and I think Apple's going to be slow to the game. They were slow to the game with 3G. They were slow to the game with 4G LTE.
yeah,
I don't think this year we're getting.
waterproofing, wireless
No, they're the
charging,
worst. It's
copy and paste.
copy and paste. I don't think this year we're going to see a 5G iPhone. We're just not. But as far as Android goes and AT&T, they have been lying. And when you're in a really fast 4G LTE place, it says 5G to kind of make you think that it's, wow, I'm here in New York and I'm here at this corner and I have such fast, but it's not real. So like it or not, AT&T's not really 5G icon is reaching phones, and the carrier has started rolling out this indicator to multiple Android headsets, including Galaxy S8 and LG's V30. Install the update and you'll see 5G on the upper right-hand corner where you used to see LTE. So as before, AT&T isn't really upgrading anyone to 5G. This is still 4G LTE, just with mix of technologies where they use special antennas. It is faster speed, but it's not technically as fast as 5G. So I just wanted to warn our users about that, that if you have a Galaxy Samsung S8 or that LG V30, you might think you have 5G when really your modem in your phone is just not fast enough yet.
So are these the handsets that are purchased from AT&T? Because is it AT&T Verizon?
Not Verizon. In fact, Verizon came out with a statement today that said, we will not lie to you about 5G like AT&T is.
We're calling you out, AT&T.
Yeah, so we'll see how long this lasts. I mean, it's kind of a marketing ploy, but
Sure.
I just wanted our users to know that you really have to buy a phone with the modem in it that supports 5G, and that's basically
right
not
now,
out.
There are none out yet. And the other thing to keep in mind is Verizon is claiming to have 5G networks up and running right now in certain cities.
Oh, yeah?
But we talked about it earlier that it's a different standard. It's not the agreed upon 5G standard, and it's not quite as fast as the agreed upon 5G standard. And it's their own in-house standard that Verizon built. And but I believe it is upgradable once the standard comes out. So, like I said before, I don't think 5G is going to really pick up in 2019. I think it's going to be 2020 when you're actually going to be able to get to some major hubs and have some form of 5G. But I don't expect it to become prolific till maybe 2022, 2023. That's when every phone you're going to buy is going to be 5G, just like 4G is right now.
Absolutely. So looks like we're coming to an end of this YouTube podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, please give us a generous 5-star rating, and we will love it.
We will love it. We will read your review in the next one because you'll be a star. You'll be a YouTube star.
Yeah, even if it's negative, I'll read it. I don't
Even
care.
if it's
I don't care who you are. Yeah.
But please keep it in English. We've gotten some comments in other languages, and we just don't know them.
We just don't know what you're saying.
Google Translate.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we'll catch you next week.
All right, bye.